Welcome, everyone, to the Courageous Truth Podcast, where we strive to live courageously through the lens of Scripture and build courageous lives in a world that is driven by fear. Your host is a proud parent, a proud pastor, a proud business owner, and a proud American. Tune in today for your dose of courageous truth. And now, your host, Eric Lundberg.
Welcome, everyone, to the Courageous Truth Podcast. I'm always honored that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today. I want to start out by quoting a scripture from the book of 2 Timothy, verse 7. That's all it says. It says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and of self-control." And if there's any time that we need to reject a spirit of fear and remember that God gave us a spirit of power, sound mind, self-control, now is the time. I appreciate so much everybody's response and everybody tuning in. Last week, I kind of put out a quote-unquote emergency episode because I felt like I really wanted to get the word out about what is happening in Washington State in regard to involuntary detaining and quarantining facilities and some of the things that the health department was going to be looking at and discussing at their meeting, which will be this Wednesday, January 12th. There has been thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of citizens who responded via email, who got the word out. Everybody was aware, and I think that that is such a beautiful thing when the citizenry comes together, Republicans, Democrats, everybody coming together to say, you know what, this is not right. We have seen the abuse of power by our governing officials, and we are not going to allow them to do this to us here in Washington State. Now, here's what we know. We know that it has been taken off the agenda for this meeting. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be activated or invoked. It did pass. It was a WAC that passed in 2003, a long time ago, actually, almost 20 years ago, but it hasn't never really been used. So that's one of the things they were looking at discussing about giving health department workers some kind of power to invoke that whack. And so we just want to make sure that we do not let them have that power. We know what they're up to, and it's very important that we stay strong on this. Now that it's been taken off the agenda, we cannot let our guard down. We have to tune into this meeting on January the 12th. We have to watch the replay. We just have to be aware, because really what it's come down to now, it's an authoritarian government that is trying to get its control on every area of our life, and we cannot allow that to happen. We need to stay vocal, we need to stay involved, and we need to stay aware. And like I said before, do not fear. This is the last time. I've talked to a lot of people in the past week, and they're afraid. They're afraid of what this could mean. They're afraid their kids are going to come and taken away from their home. They're afraid. This is not the time to be afraid. This is the time to be courageous. This is time to stand for what the truth is. Stand for liberty, and stand for our rights as citizens, as Americans. This is not the time to be afraid. I wanted to take a minute and just kind of share my experience that I had very briefly about 2 months ago. I want to say it was in the month of November. There was a big, uproar, or a little uproar. There was a quarantine facility being built out in the Roy McKenna area on 702. It's a highway out there. If you're familiar with the area, you know that it's there. You know that highway that kind of connects Eatonville to Yelm. It's a main drag there. But there was a quarantine facility that is right now being built right there. And then someone posted a video online, and it went viral immediately, of a banner that said this is a quarantine facility by a certain tribe. Snoqualmie tribe, I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. But So I saw that video and I decided, you know what? I'm headed out that way to Yelm to do a job. I'm going to stop by there and take a look. So that morning I was driving down 702 and I saw that banner on a gate about 20 yards away from the main drag. And I drove by, and as I drove by, it really just looked like a land was clearing. There was big piles of roots and tree branches and trees. It looked like they were just beginning to clear it. But as I kind of passed by on the far end of the property, I saw two men standing outside with trucks that were just kind of mean mugging everybody that went by. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting now. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go and I'm going to pull in and I'm going to snap some pictures. I'm going to do a little investigative journalism. So I turned around, came back towards Eatonville, and as I passed by I pulled over into the shoulder of the road. I was not on the property, on the gravel. I was on the shoulder of the road. My tires were touching the shoulder of the road on my trailer and of my van, and I got out. As soon as I pulled over, I wasn't right in front of it. I was kind of off to the corner where the property line was with the property next to it. And as I pulled over and I got out, and I just kind of got out and just kind of looking around, I was standing in the shoulder of the road. And as I got out, the two men that were on the opposite side of the property began to run from their where they were standing through all the brambles and over the logs and came up to me and they said, "What are you doing here?" And they got over there very quickly in just a matter of 20 seconds. And I said, "Oh, I'm just checking it out." And they said, "Well, this is private property. You need to keep moving." I said, "Well, okay, even in the shoulder, I'm in the shoulder of the road." They said, "Yep, this whole area is private property." And I said, "Okay, well, you do realize that there's a lot of people concerned about what is being built here." And they said, "You're trespassing. You need to leave." And so at that moment, I was like, "Okay, I'm headed to work anyway. I've got all the information that I need." So what I did was I got back in my truck, flipped a Yui, drove by, and videotaped them. They were not happy about the fact that I videotaped them standing there. They just mean mugged. Then I kind of went to work and I kind of processed that a little bit during the day. And I was like, well, if this is such a great help to the citizenry, why are you standing guard? Why are you putting rocks in front of the driveway? Because they had put a big, huge boulder, probably needed a track hoe to put it there so that no one could use the gravel driveway and only people could get in and out on the opposite driveway past these two men. And so I was like, well, it just didn't add up. And it just never sat well with me, my confrontation with those two men. And a lot of people, back in November were like, well, it's probably just a facility for people who can't quarantine at home. Now looking back and seeing where we're at today, realizing all the things that are playing out, we're in a very serious situation, my friends. Very serious situation. And we need to come together. This isn't Republican Democrat thing. This is the citizens who want freedom versus an authoritarian government who wants to have a police state and wants to be able to control everything about our lives. Okay, it's getting at the point where this is serious, and we have got to stand up and stand together. We've got to be aware. We've got to go to protests. We've got to voice our concern. We've got to share things on Facebook. If a lot of people are being shadow banned, keep sharing it. Like, I have a smaller platform, so I even get shadow banned. But share these things around. Let people know what's going on. So, that was my experience looking at that. I haven't driven by there since. I kind of have a decent idea of what they're doing, I'm sure, and it's going up soon, and that will probably serve. And the fact that even if it's on some kind of native land, I'm sure there's some kind of laws there that they can work around to keep us contained. What we've got to realize is our government is not trustworthy people at all. There is legislative sessions happening right now. Today was opening ceremonies of Washington State legislative sessions. You can watch that online at their Facebook page, or you can go to Washington State Prayer Coalition, or look for Joshua Wilson, who's one of the leaders and captains of the Washington State Prayer Caucus, that will give us all that information. We need to pray. We need to be vigilant. We need to be vocal. We cannot. Future generations of Washingtonians are at stake. Here's the bottom line. We either need to flee the state or we need to stand and fight. I'm going to stand and fight. And I encourage you to do the same. So anyway, January 12th is that health department meeting. You can get on some information that I had on my previous episode. Look that up. Get online. Watch that meeting. Be informed. Stay strong. Continue to take a courageous stand for the truth. Continue to subscribe. Tune in. I'm going to start a series on cultural Marxism next week. I think it's very important that we understand what is happening ideologically to our state, to our nation. And when we go to the roots, we can really begin to pull those things up and make sure that our kids, our family members, our friends are not falling prey to the vicious, evil cycle of Marxism. So look for that in the next few episodes. I want to try and keep these episodes short. God bless you. Continue to take a courageous stand for the truth, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Courageous Truth podcast. We live in a world that is in desperate need of courage and in desperate need of truth. Our prayer is that this podcast will equip and inspire you to live courageously for your family, your community, your God, and for your country. Be courageous in your stand for truth in a world that is completely abandoned. See you next time right here at the Courageous Truth podcast. Remember, truth requires courage.